During the Seneca Falls Convention of 1848, the compromise to include voting rights for women in the Declaration of Sentiments created a movement that brought gender equality for women socially, educationally, and politically. In 1776, Abigail Adams wrote to her husband, John Adams, in the Continental Congress not to forget the nation's women when fighting for America's independence. In her letter, she wrote, "I desire you remember the ladies, and be more generous and favorable to them than your ancestors. Remember, all men would be tyrants if they could. If particular care is not paid to the ladies, we are determined to foment a rebellion." Since our founding fathers did not remember the ladies, the United States was put on a collision course to deal with this inequality. John Adams, in the Continental Congress, wrote the Declaration of Independence. It states, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal." Here's what was created in America from this document, along with legal decisions that conflict with women equality. In 1765, Judge William Blackstone stated in Commentaries on the Laws of England, "By marriage, the husband and wife are one person in law. That is, the very being or legal existence of the woman is suspended during the marriage, or at least is incorporated and consolidated into that of her husband, under whose wing, protection, and cover she performs everything." This quote by Judge Blackstone shows how once the woman was married, she no longer had a fair say in her marriage or socially. She was only incorporated. If the wife had her own views, they were consolidated in with her husband's views. A woman's identity and her pursuit of happiness was lost. Before the 18th century, girls attended dame schools, but only a small percentage attended town schools or academies. Educational institutions beyond the dame schools, schools were private, segregated by sex, and exclusive to wealthy families. Riordan, 1990. The primary focus of dame schools was to prepare boys for admission to higher education, which, until the 19th century, girls were not allowed to attend. Riordan, 1990. Essay by Jennifer C. Madigan. This quote explains how a boy's education was valued over a girl's because the girls went to dame school to learn, and it was their only schooling, while boys went to school to prepare themselves for academies. Academies prepared boys for high-paying jobs like doctors, lawyers, and businessmen. Women could not be trained for these jobs. They worked at home or at very low-paying jobs. This limited their income and independence. It was believed in the 1600s and 1700s that the only person who should cast a ballot was the head of the household, the man. People argued that women were not independent enough to express their own free will. This shows how society thought women were too weak and insecure to do what a man does. In the Bible, it states, "Your desire shall be for your husband, and he shall rule over you." This excerpt from the Bible shows how not just society thought the man should be more powerful, but the religious teachings did too. These beliefs in society kept the power to vote and having a vote away from women and creating inequality. The idea to form a women's rights convention started after Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Lucretia Mott were pushed into the women-only section at an anti-slavery convention in England and ordered not to speak. Upset with this treatment, Lucretia Mott and Elizabeth Cady Stanton planned to have their own meeting to look at the social, civil, and religious conditions of women. During the meeting, the first day 200 women attended the meeting. The Declaration of Sentiments and Grievances was read. This declaration was closely modeled to the Declaration of Independence. The Declaration of Sentiments listed the injustices inflicted upon women and called upon U.S. women to organize and petition for their rights. The Declaration of Sentiments was written by Elizabeth Cady Stanton. The Declaration of Sentiments mirrors the Declaration of Independence almost exactly. The Declaration of Independence states that all men are created equal. The Declaration of Sentiments and Grievances, however, states that all men and women are created equal. The Declaration of Sentiments conflicted with Judge Blackstone's words about how the very being or legal existence of the woman is suspended during the marriage. The Declaration of Sentiments said women and men are equal when married and in society. 68 women and 32 men signed the Declaration of Sentiments. On day 2, about 40 men showed up, including the famous abolitionist Frederick Douglass. That day, in the convention, a compromise was made. The convention passed 12 resolutions, 11 were unanimous, but the 12th one, the voting right resolution, caused a lengthy debate that ended when Frederick Douglass said, "It was hers before she comprehended it. It is inscribed upon all the powers and facilities of her soul, and no custom, law, or usage can ever destroy it." People showed up to discuss the social, civil, and religious conditions of a woman. They had no idea that there would be a debate over whether or not women should have the right to vote. In the end of a long debate, the compromise to include women's suffrage started a long conflict to fight for women's equality. In 1866, suffragists presented a petition to Congress bearing 10,000 signatures on the disfranchisement on the basis of sex. It did not pass. Then, in 1868, Congress passed the 14th Amendment, which included the word male for the first time in the Constitution. Within the first years of Seneca Falls Convention, Congress showed that the conflict for equality was going to be a long struggle by passing the 14th Amendment. Groups opposed of women's suffrage across the nation formed to show their disagreement. Josephine Doge, a woman who led a movement to establish daycare centers to help working mothers, founded the National Association Opposed to Women's Suffrage. This group was a mix of men and women opposed to women's suffrage. These people argued that women took care of the home and children and did not have time to vote or stay updated on politics. They would also argue that women lacked the expertise or mental capacity to offer a useful opinion about political issues. This group was mostly popular in the northeast part of the United States. Across the country, a much larger movement was forming where the states started passing women's suffrage, marching, and demonstrating across the country. Eventually, those who supported women's equality and suffrage outnumbered those opposed. For 72 years, after the Seneca Falls Convention to compromise and call for women's suffrage, the 19th Amendment was finally passed in 1920. It stated, "The right of citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of sex. Due to this right, women have succeeded educationally." Women's equality in education increased greatly over the years. Women's grades in high school have been increasing higher than men's every year. Women's associate's degrees are significantly higher than men of all races. Women's bachelor's degrees were higher than all men. Women getting PhD degrees were higher than men. Women did not stop climbing to the top. This chart shows that men's education went down while women moved up, now being more balanced and equal. Women were excelling more than men in education in college, high school, and after college and PhD degrees. Since the passage of the 19th Amendment, women have gained political strength. According to Center for American Women and Politics at Rutgers University, they put together a review of women involved in politics from national, state, and local positions. At the national level, currently there are 7 women in cabinet-level positions, and 3 women out of 9 in the Supreme Court. 22 women serve in the U.S. Senate, and 84 women in the U.S. House. At the state level, there are 446 women in the state senates, and 1,419 women in the state houses. Lastly, at the local level, 286 mayors are female. Sue Thomas used a male survey of legislatures in 12 states in 1988 and found that women in politics and Congress were more likely to look at what's better for the whole country rather than just a small part of it. Having women participate in government allows women to be equal. It also focuses our government on other areas. According to Sue Thomas, a professor of government at Georgetown University, women in government bring up personal issues to make bills dealing with women issues, children, and family a priority. With women in government, Congress is more likely to look at what's best for the whole country rather than what men focused on before the 19th Amendment. At the Seneca Falls Convention in 1848, the compromise to include voting rights for women put in motion a series of conflicts that eventually established the 19th Amendment. Through education and voting power, women have gained equality and have made America a whole nation.